The people who adopted my sister always loved her more than I did. So when I opened my own business, they tried to get me to open my store at the same time as her graduation. In this way, I finally got what was coming to me. I am 24 years old and came from what seemed like a normal middle-class home in the suburbs, but my parents have always hurt me. People in our neighborhood thought they were great because they loved their adopted daughters so much. A lot more than just their own kid. Not many people really understand how this affected me. When I was 6 years old, my parents brought home my adopted sister Emma, 21F. It changed everything in my life. When my parents sat me down in the living room to talk about the chance of adopting a sibling, I was so excited. When I had to wait for my parents to get home from work, I would often do afternoons by myself making up games in our backyard. I didn't have any brothers to play with, and all the other kids in the area were either much younger or longer than me. Having a sister to play with and share my toys with seemed like the best thing ever. When Emma first came, it was exactly what I wanted. That afternoon at home was so peaceful. We played and ate snacks together, and I finally had someone to talk to. At first, the changes in my family were small, but they got bigger over time. I remember Emma being the center of my parents. They paid close attention to her and always did what was best for her. If Emma didn't feel well, they would cancel our plans for the weekend as a family, change their plans so they could go to all of her school events but not mine, and they changed their dinner plans to fit her tastes. I started to feel like I wasn't important in my own family. My parents seemed to be losing interest in me. This story is about more than just family rivalry, though I know some people might think I'm just about that. Mad at me. My parents had very different ideas about how to handle daycare for Emma and me. With just 1 week after Emma was born, my mom quit her 8-year job at the accounting company to be a full-time mom. That was a very different time from when I was born. Mom went back to work after her maternity leave was over, so I had to find other people to care for my kids. Most of my time was spent at my grandparents' small apartment, or with any young babysitter my parents could find that month. That was because they were always worried about money, worked extra hours and on the weekends. The parenting situation wasn't great at all. These girls, who were usually high school students looking for extra money, didn't pay attention to me at work. Instead, they used their time to hang out with their boyfriends. They would text or talk on their phones in the living room, while I would be alone in my room for hours at a time. Their lovers would sometimes sneak in through the garage door or our back window while they thought I was asleep. After I told my parents over and over that the current sitter was bad, they fired her and hired a new one who behaved the same way. This loop went on for years, and I felt like no one really cared about my well-being for most of my early years. Things looked like they would get better when Emma arrived. I stepped right up to be the big brother. She could play with all of my toys, and I even helped her learn letters. As a 6-year-old, having my mother at home full-time seemed like an extra bonus. I did everything I could. I hoped that one day we could finally do all the things I had seen other kids do with their moms, like making cookies or going to the park. My mom thought I would be mature and able to take care of myself since I was the bigger brother. But she gave Emma a lot of attention instead. They gave her time and attention and made her feel like a star. Things got really tough when my parents changed their minds about what they were going to do for my birthday. The shelter didn't know Emma's real birthday because she was found alone in a shopping mall. After a lot of tests, including physical exams, teeth exams, and growth checks, the experts came to the conclusion that she was about 3 years old when she was found. They chose for Emma to share my birthday instead of keeping the date she was given at the shelter or picking a different day of the year. They talked about this idea as if it were a special honor for me. Each year there were small changes that I noticed, but those early mixed birthday parties were fine, even though I kept getting gifts and eat some cake. Emma began to take charge of the events. She'd get twice as many gifts from family and friends, and they wouldn't even notice my gifts because they were so excited that we were celebrating together. Everyone was interested in Emma's past, and they treated her like a queen instead of a kid. As everyone crowded around Emma to listen to her tell the same adoption story they had heard a million times before, I opened my gifts in silence, trying not to feel like I wasn't there at my own birthday party. I'm still mad that my parents made Emma share my birthday with me. She had already been given a date by the orphanage the day she was found. It was also my aunt's birthday in September, and my folks. Emma's big day could have been her anniversary in March, or just about any other day. For some reason though, my parents chose my birthday. saying that this would make Emma feel more connected to her family. Birthdays are the one day a year when most kids really feel like they're the center of attention. But my parents turned this small childhood joy into another way to tell me that Emma's needs always came first. They ended this choice with sentimental platitudes about family and sharing, which made it hard for a 6-year-old to show sadness without coming across as self-centered. My uncle was the only one at that first joint party who seemed to notice something wasn't right. He asked me if I was really okay with everything. I don't remember being excited about my birthday until I was 10 years old. Emma was in charge of all of our shared celebrations, from choosing princess themes that made me feel awkward at my own party to picking a dessert I didn't really like. The guest list situation was especially unfair because I could only ask 5 friends, while Emma would bring 20 or more from all the things she did. Because of this rule, I had to be very picky about which friends I could bring every year, which sometimes made it hard for me to get along with people who couldn't go. We stopped talking for weeks because I couldn't ask my best friend to my 11th birthday party. When I wanted to add my friend as a 6th guest one year, it became even clearer that these events were not fair. Right away, my parents said no, saying that our house could already fit as many people as possible. Still, there was always room for Emma's friends and their moms, who seemed to have to watch their girls all the time. When I brought up the fact that my parents often say that girls need more care, they used this as an excuse to brush off my fears. My friends showed up by themselves. Friends of Emma and their moms were in our living room the whole time, and they treated me like a guest even though it was my birthday. I finally got the nerve to suggest having separate parties more than once. Every time I tried, my parents would cut me off with explanations they had already thought of about Emma's troubled past, as if that made it okay to take over my birthday. They would tell me she didn't know her real one. On the other hand, they would bring up her hard start in life 100 times, ignoring the fact that they were giving her a hard gift by constantly denying my feelings. It made me feel bad to bring it up in these chats, like I was being selfish by wanting a day to myself. I gave up fighting about my birthday in the end. On what had become Emma's special day, I learned how to do my part and make Emma's brother smile. The pain didn't go away, it just became a feeling that kept coming back on every birthday. Emma opened twice as many gifts as I did while I sat quietly in the background and tried to look happy while my family went crazy over her. They barely even noticed me. The only good thing that came out of all of this was discovering my love for making things by hand. In a simple start, an empty cereal box was turned into a pencil holder one dull afternoon. I quickly started making art out of everyday things around the house. Bins full of gathered items and old. When I needed to find something I could use again, I would go to our garage and look for it. For hours on end, I watched how-to videos and learned new ways to make everything from complicated jewelry to beautiful wall hangings. My work slowly filled up my room. Emma wasn't allowed to share or take charge of this, it was all mine. What started out as a way for me to relax in my teens had turned into a successful online business by the time I was in my early 20s. I worked at a nearby coffee shop during the day and spent many nights writing and running my online shop, improving product pictures, and writing descriptions. People on social networks began getting interested in the things I made by hand, and soon I had regular customers from all over the country. A shipping station, cabinets full of supplies, and the space that was supposed to be my dining room were all added to my small apartment to make it into a workshop. After 3 years of careful budgeting, working extra hours, and putting almost all of my earnings back into the business, I was finally able to open my own physical shop. The place I found was great. A building that used to be a store with big windows and open brick walls and a busy shopping area. I signed the lease 2 months ago, and in my free time I planned the store layout, made exhibits, and worked on a big opening event. This was my chance to shine and show everyone what I could do. That the boy who sat in the corner on his birthday had done something important. I even hired a neighborhood photographer to take pictures of the whole thing. I knew what my parents would do when I told them the store was starting. After they seemed happy for about 5 minutes, my mom told them that Emma was also graduating from college at the same time. Before I even finished planning my plans, they suggested that we join the opening party with Emma's graduation party. My dad nodded as if this were the smartest idea ever. And my mom said, "Think about it. We can invite everyone once instead of making them come to 2 separate events." It was funny that I was trying to combine my. Once again, they didn't notice the milestone with Emma's. I said no right away, saying that I wanted this party to be mostly about what I had done, When I told them no, they looked surprised, like they didn't get why I didn't want to share this moment with them. Using their tried and true methods of making things easy for everyone to make people feel guilty, they kept putting pressure on. People told me I was selfish and difficult. When I was a kid, they said the same things over and over. It's only one day. Why can't you be more understanding? But this time was different. For years, I worked alone to build this business, staying up late to fill orders, dealing with difficult clients and learning how a business works by making mistakes and learning from them. I made it clear that this event would only be about opening my store. They could no longer make me feel bad. When my parents saw that I wasn't going to give in, they got angry and said they might not go to the opening at all. For the first time in my life, I told them that was their choice. I felt confused and angry after the whole thing happened. I was their kid right now. They weren't proud or encouraging me when I did something great by myself. Instead, they tried to downplay my accomplishment by bringing up Emma again. They didn't think I deserved a party, even though I was an adult running my own business. I wasn't a 6-year-old boy who could be encouraged to talk about his great day, but the same themes from my childhood were coming up again. I chose that the opening of my store would be my time alone, no matter who came to party. After I vented my anger online, here is update 1. One of the hundreds of comments I got really stood out to me. Someone said that my parents unintentionally gave me the perfect chance to get back at them. I understood that the opening of my business would always be more important than graduating from college. This was especially true since I could give everyone first dibs on my goods and great deals. People are always more interested in things that directly help them. I sent my parents a message saying I agreed to their plan instead of continuing to be against the combined party. I told them I had changed my mind and thought it was a good idea for everyone to get together for one big party. My parents were thrilled that I seemed to have changed my mind. They probably thought that their guilt trips had won me over again. During all of the planning meetings, I stayed cooperative and nodded along when they talked about food options and ideas for decorations. Just as I thought they would, my parents planned the whole party. In addition to planning the food, they also booked a fancy venue and contacted all of our family and friends, with Emma's graduation as the main idea. Everything was made with Emma's tastes in mind, from the color scheme to the music that would be played. The invite cards they gave out were the last piece of proof that I had made the right choice. Big, fancy letters read Emma's graduation across the top of these beautiful cards with gold edges. Not even the small print at the bottom talked about my store opening. Even though this is exactly what I had planned, I'm sure my parents thought I would be sad. While everyone was focused on Emma's success, I would tell them something that would completely surprise them. During these weeks, I worked quietly to finish getting ready for the opening of my store and getting my own stuff ready. The party place was great, as you would expect from my parents. Almost everyone had been asked. It was perfect that I told everyone about it right after the talks, but before the cake cutting. When the bartender saw me, he gave me a new glass of champagne. I stood up, and everyone looked at me. They were on me, probably waiting for another Emma ode. I worked with the venue staff to make my sales materials earlier, while my parents were busy greeting guests. My announcement was very short, so I didn't need any emotional pleas or poetic language. I just said that next month, after years of building my online business, I will open my first storefront. People quickly gathered around me to ask where the store would be located, what kinds of things I would be selling, and what deals I would be offering only to family and friends. My aunt, who had just finished talking about how well Emma was doing in school, was now using her phone to show everyone pictures of my things. During the whole evening, there was differences between how my parents answered in private and in public. As my family praised me, they faked smiles and nods of agreement, acting as perfectly as they always do in front of guests. But I could tell they were stressed because my dad's jaw tensed up whenever someone brought up my store, and my mom's hands shook a little while she served cake. Emma didn't show up to her own graduation party until after her champagne toast failed, and not many people paid attention to her practice speech about how great college was. When the last family member left and the chefs started to clean up, my mom's front finally broke. She was all over me. It was the same woman who had taught me for years to share the stage who now said I ruined her sweet daughter's graduation party. I calmly explained my position and made it clear that they, not I, had thought of the idea for this joint party. Plus the fact that I had just announced my business as planned. This was clear from my dad's answer. They were very biased. He jumped right to, They blamed my jealousy instead of accepting that they had been mistreated for years. When I was little, I saw this pattern. People called me selfish or envious whenever I tried to claim my own place. After putting it off for 20 years, I finally spoke up. I went into depth about every party, birthday, and moment that had been taken by Emma and made her own. For once, I wasn't trying to get pity or compassion, I was just telling them the truth about how they behaved. As a normal way to defend themselves, my parents said the same things they had said when we were kids. They talked about Emma's bad start, how she was left alone, and how she didn't know her real family, which meant she needed more help. That was the same reason I heard at every family gathering, school event, and birthday when no one cared about my wants. This time, though, I didn't feel bad about what they said. I had been seeing my doctor for years to work through these feelings. I finally understood that their actions were driven by their need to be seen as heroes, not by Emma's needs. When we talked to Emma, she was waiting in the doorway because none of us knew she had come back to the place. She rushed into the room with mascara running down her face, putting on the dramatic show that she always did so well. She said that I had always hated her and that I was jealous of her place in the family. People had told me it was never enough, but the truth was I had given up my space and my fun in my early years to be the perfect big brother, instead of having to deal with our parents' constant. Because I was favoring her, she was now acting like I was mad at her. The days that followed the party showed how deeply rooted my parents' bias was. They only talked about Emma's hurt feelings and didn't talk about how their actions had made things worse. They called me over and over to ask for more than just an apology, but telling me that I should pay for a trip for Emma to help her deal with her stress. It was amazing how stupid their request was. People really cared about how well my business did, not Emma's graduation, so they wanted me to give her thousands of dollars. They wanted my hard-earned money so they could pay for Emma's holiday because she felt like she was being watched too much at one party. As a response to their requests, I just left. I was done playing their game after years of trying to understand and work with them. They seemed surprised that I wasn't going to give up and say I was sorry like I had done so many times before. Emma's tears had been their best weapon in the past, but they weren't working this time. Nothing would ever change, as shown by the fact that they couldn't see the irony in Emma's meltdown over sharing attention at one event, while I had to share or give up the focus at every party for 20 years. I had already tried to talk to my family about these things. During my late teens and early 20s, I tried to talk to them about how biased my parents were several times. I did many things, such as writing them long emails about how I felt and asking family to help me, going to therapy, and trying to be polite during family meals. Emma had a hard start in life, and every time she tried, she got the same answer. They used this phrase to explain away anything I said that made them angry or hurt. Emma's abandonment was only brought up by my mom when I was 19 and crying during a very hard chat about how lonely I felt at my own birthday parties. I finally accepted that my parents couldn't see what they were doing because they had been doing it for so long. When I was 21, I moved out of their house and hired a small apartment across town with the first money I made from my online business. Since then, our bond has become less deep. We see each other at family gatherings, send each other birthday wishes, and talk about big changes in our lives. But there isn't any real link anymore. There aren't any deep conversations or tears shared. People are still confused by how I'm separating myself. I no longer expect them to. They say I should change or see things my way, but they still blame me for not being more aware of Emma's needs. Second news. Just when I thought they were done with all the noise from the graduation party, my parents surprised me with an even stranger request. They showed up at my house out of the blue, right before my store's big opening. In the beginning, they sat awkwardly on my couch and asked about the store's plans while acting normally. Their real reason for coming was to ask me to make Emma the store manager, which they told me later. Some people said that since she had a college degree, she shouldn't have to go through the normal job search process. They thought I had to give Emma a ready-made job because I had worked so hard over the years to build this business. As my parents talked about how great Emma would be to run my store, things started to get weird. My dad says that her main qualifications were being smart, having a general business degree, and being pretty, as if how you look had anything to do with running a store. Years of studying business operations, customer service, and product management had made me realize that Emma's beauty was more important than anything else I knew. I made fun of my parents by asking if there was anything else they wanted me to do for their beloved daughter. They didn't think twice about suggesting that Emma cut the ribbon at the store's opening. What did she think? Emma would be made up for feeling like she was being overlooked at her graduation party. They wanted me to give someone who didn't know anything about retail a management job in my company and let her be the store's face when it opened. Because they thought Emma deserved to be the center of attention again. But this wasn't about birthday anymore, having parties or trading toys. This was how I made money, what I was proud of in my work, and something I had made on my own, without their help. When I turned them down, they did what they always did, they played with my feelings. The guilt trips came first, then accusations of being selfish and threats. With the same firmness she used to make me tell everyone my birthday, my mom gave them their choice. They wouldn't come to the store opening unless I gave Emma what she wanted. Emma's cocky look as they threatened me told me she thought I would do what she said, just like I always did. They were all shocked when I agreed to what they wanted and told them not to come at all. Even though my close family wasn't there, the store opening was even better than I had hoped. The room was full of loyal customers from my online business and supportive friends. My whole family showed up at once. When family members nervously asked about my parents' absence, I told them the truth without feeling bad or guilty about it. Some people showed concern, while others were worried. I didn't care about controlling how other people felt about my family's situation. My store is doing pretty well now that it's been open for a while. My parents were rude as usual because they thought I would come and say sorry like I had done so many times before. But their silence is no longer painful, it has become peaceful. I no longer feel like I have to shrink to fit their idea of the perfect family.